let's move on to the last section about fundraising and all the pains and wonders that come with it.
Yep.
All right, first one, little lighthearted one. What investor question made you roll your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few of them that just immediately indicate the investor probably doesn't know what they're doing, or maybe they're not a good fit. One right off the bat is just anytime they ask for financial projections when you're a very early stage company, like, it just makes no sense. It's going to take effort to put into it. You want to see how this company is going to look in 3 years. Well, nobody knows really because it's very early stage and you're still figuring out the opportunity. So it's just like window dressing for them. Yeah, things like that where it's just like when they ask for stuff you'd be expected to have at later stages, but you're an early stage company. Yeah, that's always an eye roll.
I hear ya. Without naming names, what was your worst investor experience?
Yeah, hands down, it was one of the investors we interacted with who during the whole process was wonderful otherwise, but at the end, we got to a handshake, sent over a safe, they signed it, and then they said they just needed to conduct some final due diligence, just send over, articles of organization and everything. And they go back and forth a little bit, and they got themselves convinced that we might be a hedge fund somehow. And so we get on a call and we clarify, no, of course we're not a hedge fund. We're just a normal company. We're coming out of Y Combinator. Y Combinator doesn't fund hedge funds. And they knew all this, but they were just very worried about it. Apparently, they got burned in the past from some company they invested in that was a hedge fund. And so they seem okay. We send them a few more things and they come back and they renege. They say, look, we're not going to do this. We're not going to wire the money. So
Hmm.
after they had signed a safe. So very unfortunate is the most kind way of putting it. Yeah, I reached out again. I said, hey, why don't we just hop on a call? This would be like a really unfortunate thing to let the investment fall through over just this misunderstanding. And they sent a short email that just said, just move on. We'll chat next time. And so needless to say, there won't be a next time.
I was gonna say, what a curt response. How can I imagine there'll be a next time after that?
Yeah, right, right.
Sorry that happened, but thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Let's go on to kind of like an advice type question. Having gone through fundraising, what did you learn about the process that no one told you before?
Yeah, so this was our second time fundraising. We raised a pre-seed round and this was our seed round. I'd say the biggest thing has just been structuring the process. It can feel very haphazard when you're doing it the first time. You're meeting with all these different people, and not to mention all the emotions that are played into it with yeses and nos, and how it can feel like your destiny is sort of hinging on getting this money in. But yeah, structuring the process, thinking about one, I mean, just having a sheet where you can track everything, but then organizing your investors with your angels first and those with the highest probability to close, and doing it all in a very tight schedule. So you don't spend any more time than you need to, and you can move things along very quickly and improve your pitch. I think if I had to do it again, I know how to do it very well and very streamlined at this point. That definitely helps.
I think you kind of touched on the next question already, so I'm going to go ahead and move to your pivot. Let's talk about your pivot.
Yeah, so we entered Y Combinator this past batch focused on Quantbase. That was the robo advisor that we were SEC registered with, that out of which came Hadrius after just becoming well acquainted with how painful running your compliance program is.
Hmm.
And the pivot itself. So we knew coming into the batch that we were going to pivot. It was we were on the tail end of our discussions about this. And so, the first week when the batch started, we just sat down in our living room and we just thought of all these ideas we could come up with. And each of us were chasing, ideas that we found the most promising. and they were all over the board, from like advertising in short-term rentals to um, managing marketing workflows for large organizations to the like the voting paperwork you get from stocks you have ownership in when voting happens, managing those proxy voting mailings and requests. So all these different areas before, weeks and weeks in, we work on an idea for a few days and talking to customers, moving as quickly as we could before realizing there was some fatal flaw that we just had to drop with it. Before finally, very organically, we decided, okay, let's just focus on somewhere in finance. We know finance, let's focus on finance. Somewhere in solving problems for financial firms. So let's just talk to a bunch of financial firms and see what problems they have and what they'd be willing to pay for. Few dozen conversations after that, very quickly we narrowed into compliance is such a headache. It's existing solutions are old, they suck, and we pay to have all this time and money we already spend on this be better allocated. So from there, and obviously that matches up with our experience running our own compliance, and that's why I say in hindsight it's so obvious that we should have focused on this from the beginning because we just have so much fit here. And from there we're sort of off to the races, getting more customers and consolidated back on this idea and ran with it.
Just to add a personal plug here, I do remember going through YC. I had met your co-founder Sam early, and when you guys were pivoting, and I recall a few weeks later at one of the curios, we chat again. He tells me about the pivot and the many customers you guys signed. It was like you were off to the races. And I think those are kind of the ideal pivot stories that the YC partners try to push you towards. Yeah, a lot of people are pivoting to various levels of success. And I think you guys really pivoted with a ton of success. That's really awesome.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it was definitely well fought. It was a hellish process to get to that point, I'd say.
Last question, something a little bit more lighthearted and fun. What was the craziest valuation you've seen at the seed stage? And any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, one that comes to mind right now is a few years ago there was when Binance raised their seed round and they raised like 300 million bucks or something like that, or maybe that was the valuation they raised at, which is just hilarious. But I mean that at least made sense. They were an established company. Binance internationally was, and then it was their US entity. But there's definitely been a lot of interesting ones these last few months with like Mistral AI based in Europe, supposed to be this big open AI killer, raised over 100 million in their seed round. And as I understand it, they don't have customers yet. So that's always a fun one to see when somebody raises a huge amount of money and they don't have customers yet. It's really like a binary, like this is going to work, or I mean, it's not even binary really. It's like it might work, or they might launch and it's going to be lukewarm, or it's just a total dud, and
Yeah.
you should given them all your money yet. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Thomas, this was fun. Thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, appreciate it anytime.